Hello there, it is Nick Zangl coming at you live from California for the first time in a few weeks. I have missed you all very much and I am excited to get back on track. So, we are going to get into the live recap and react for episode 6 of season 11 of Real Housewives of Beverly Hills. This aired a few weeks ago, and today I'm going to be doing episode 6, and tomorrow I will be doing episode 7. That way, we will be all caught up before Wednesday night's episode 8 of the season. And I hope everyone has been doing well since I've been away. Long story short, I was planning on pre-recording or recording these and then uploading them as premieres. Things happened during the 2 weeks I told you that I would be a little off normal schedule, and the worst case scenario kind of happened and things got pushed and crammed together. So I am excited to be back on this. We will be back running up to normal schedule on the channel by the end of this week. So like I said, today episode 6, tomorrow episode 7, Wednesday I have another topic outside of these recaps planned, and then Thursday we will do episode 8, which will actually air on Wednesday night. So wherever you are listening from, whether you are here live on YouTube on this Monday at 6 p.m. local time, or you are listening to the replay on YouTube or Rumble or on your favorite podcasting platform where I upload audio, make sure to comment where you can, and if you're joining live, make sure to say hi. So with that said, let's get into this. So this is episode 6, which was titled The Liberation of Erika Jayne, and we will get right into the first block, which I was calling them acts before, but I'm calling them blocks now. If you want to know more about why I'm calling them blocks now, you can ask me in the chat, but if not, we'll just jump right into it. So we picked up where the last episode left off, of Erika walking up to the Parisian lunch at Sutton's rental house owned by Kyle, where she walks in, pictured here, with her hands up saying, "I'm here," in her Erika voice, Erika deep, nasally voice. And she doesn't acknowledge the divorce announcement that just happened a few days prior right away. And so everyone is kind of just sitting back, not really pushing the issue or forcing Erika to talk about anything that she may be not ready to talk about yet. But then Crystal kind of opens the door to Erika by complimenting her dress, and then Erika goes on to ask the groups, "So what's going on with everyone?" And it's kind of an interesting question, and that is also pointed out by Garcelle in her confessional, which, from what I heard from Garcelle's confessional about Erika's question, it seemed like it was a little chopped up in editing, because you can hear different tones and different quality of sound from Garcelle, and you can tell they kind of chopped up her sentence to kind of create something out of really nothing, in my opinion. But Garcelle basically was calling out Erika for not telling her friends about the divorce in person, and said, "Yes, Erika, that is a very interesting question for asking what is going on with everyone. Let's see if you will start." And so they all go into the other room and they start their lunch at Sutton's, and everyone is complimenting the tablescape, and they talk about it being a great day and that Mercury is now not in retrograde anymore. And Kyle says that could have been the reason why Dorit and her had an issue about Dorit talking too much when they were on the plane ride back from Lake Tahoe, and we saw that play out in the last few episodes. But then Garcelle basically confirms in a kind of jokingly friendly way that, "Dorit, you are very long-winded," to which Kyle kind of shares that her sister, Kathy, who is at the table, does the opposite, who basically talks in shorthand. And so then Kyle does this impression that everyone finds funny about regarding her sister. They all laugh, and then Kathy rather, says in her confessional the reason that she talks in shorthand, and she kind of alludes to things rather than giving specifics or whatnot, is because you never know who is listening. And so this made me think, I was like, you know what? She's so right, because I have, in recent and in the past, have been talking to someone, but I know I'm not alone with them, meaning we might be having a one-on-one conversation, but there are people in the peripheral area that I don't know if they're listening or not, but I'd rather be on the safer side if it's something I don't want necessarily everyone to hear. And so I kind of understand what Kathy's doing, but I don't necessarily think I'd do it to that extent that Kathy does, which is basically all the time, which is kind of funny. But the impression was well received by everyone. And so then we see Kathy has requested caviar to be served at the table. Lisa Rinna then asks Erika about how her dog is doing in her new house, meaning Erika's new house after she moved out because of her divorce. But Erika still at this point wasn't showing any signs of opening up about the divorce at this point. And so we see Sutton sharing then that the day before, her and Garcelle had bought a new, or went to go look for a new car. And we saw that last week. And then Erika shares how she also got a new car. She said she got a Range Rover versus Sutton's Bentley. And this is when Erika basically just says, okay, she starts sharing very carefully about what is going on with her marriage. And she says, quote, okay, well, let's discuss the elephant in the room. And that's when the serious music starts playing. And we start hearing Erika open up more about what is happening in her life. So she starts sharing with the girls that week. Oops, I just hit the mic. Sorry, hold on. Hold on 1 second. Make sure everything's good. Okay, good. She says that week is when her life drastically changed, and she left basically everything behind, from the cars to the 16,000 square foot house to her marriage. And she said she left because she had to. And so we then go to Erika in her confessional, sharing how she left after Tom kept pushing her further and further out. And she said that their conversations were getting shorter. And she said that she would walk around their house and think to herself that the marriage was going down a bad path. And then we go back to the lunch table where we hear Erika tell the girls how she didn't tell them on purpose because it would have put them in a bad position if she had shared info with them that they had to hold on to. And for Erika, it wouldn't have served her legally, from what she says, considering she is married to, at this point, what was perceived in the world as a well-known, one of the best trial attorneys in the country. So she basically said if she had told all these people about her divorce and had to trust them to keep it safe, one, they either were burdened by it or it could be used against her at some point. So then Erika also shared she thought about leaving for a while and had to close out certain parts of her life leading up to the actual filing for divorce. And this leads to a flashback to 1 month earlier of her with her glam team touring her previous home with the rooms that had been converted for her closet. And then 3 weeks earlier, we see more footage that we weren't shown before when her and Sutton were at the office space of Erika's, and that was shown in the first few episodes of the season. And in that, we see that Erika actually told Sutton she was selling some of her clothes on some of the racks, to which Sutton was confused as to why, and Erika didn't really answer Sutton and didn't really explain other than just a smirk like, I don't know, or kind of a shoulder shrug. And again, I want to say hats off to the editing team or whoever makes the decisions on how to put the seasons together, because we obviously saw those instances of Erika with other people, but they conveniently cut out the parts that would make sense as she revealed more about her life. And I think also the editors have to keep in mind that not everyone follows the tabloids outside the show. So I think they've done a really good job of kind of appeasing me or us who maybe were looking out for certain storylines to be shown on the show, but also making sure that people maybe who aren't aware of what's going on prior to watching the show also get the story and can enjoy it and kind of see what's really going on. So I think they did a really good job with that. And I will be watching for the girls, because they're living this in real time, revisiting things that Erika told them or showed them that in this new context make more sense. So I'll be curious to see if they bring that back up or if maybe they'll wait till the reunion for things to come out. Now, Erika says also in this scene that she tried to save the marriage many times, but Tom, her husband, didn't want to. And Erika says that she was always dismissed when she wanted to talk about or bring up any problems with Tom in their marriage. And we also learned that Erika thought of filing on election day, which we now learned that was those text messages that were being read by the other cast members on the show in real time were actually on election day. That would keep it from getting picked up in the press. But she says clearly that did not work. So there's a hint to anybody on a reality show who wants to find good timing. Just know that if you're in the spotlight in any way, it will come out somehow. So anyways, there was that. But then we get flashbacks to the Lake Tahoe trip that we just saw, where she seemed okay. And Kathy then says she thought Erika was a trooper and smiled and carried on like a lady. And then Erika says some vague statements that I think allude to her knowing what we know now about her ex-husband's alleged corrupt dealings as a lawyer, and kind of confirms why they showed what they showed on the show, if you will. So that was the whole first block, the whole opening scene. And so let me know what you think of this. And if you, as you're leaving your thoughts in the chat, I'm going to go on to block number 2. So in this one, we get Erika sharing, or starting off by saying, quote, "As soon as I get a handle on what is coming for me, and it will be coming for me," end quote. And so Lisa Rinna then says they are there for her, and Erika continues by saying, quote, "I did not see it ending this way. I was going to hold that man's hand until he died, but, life happens," end quote. Lisa Rinna then continues to say in her confessional that she worries for Erika about how vicious this will get because Erika is divorcing a very prominent trial attorney. So that was the quote that we actually saw in the preview for the season, and this was the scene that we had been waiting for things to be unveiled. Now then Erika invites everyone over to her new rental house, to which Erika under her breath says she quote unquote stole some furniture, jokingly of course, but basically saying that she grabbed a few things and left. But we will get more details on what actually happened the day she filed, which is quite dramatic. But then we get into a lighter moment with none other than Kathy Hilton, who is once again the comedic relief of the season, sharing about ending up on covers of magazines and how it is no good for anyone, and that no one will ever be happy seeing themselves on the cover of a magazine, no matter how true the story is. And so she continues to speak in her shorthand and kind of makes a joke about it, how dare she be long-winded. And it was kind of a throwback to, or a dig at Dorit, who, like we said, her and Kyle have been getting into it about how Dorit is rather long-winded, but we see that Dorit actually was laughing at this. And so it appears that any of the Kyle Dorit drama is not that deep, and they seem to have squashed it. And the end of the first scene, or the first block, cut to Dorit's serious face when they teased Kathy saying that, but it looks like that was just shady editing. So we will see kind of how this manifests itself going forward. So now the girls are in the front room, and Erika is sharing more about what happened with the divorce. And she says that it looks like it took a lot for her to get to this place, and she thinks that things will get better from there. So this is one thing that actually threw me off a little bit, because if she's honestly opening up thinking that it will get better from here, but then she said it will be coming for her, I wonder if she really knows deep down that things are about to get really serious for her and her now ex-husband, and she's just putting on a brave face for the girls and trying not to expose too much to them with her vague statements. But her confessionals kind of speak otherwise to what she is telling the girls in person. So we'll see how this all plays out again. And then Kathy says to Erika that she sees Erika as not being attached to the things that she left behind. Then Erika goes on to add more, saying that she was actually the third wife to live in that house. And so Sutton then asks if Tom will stay at that house, to which Erika says absolutely. So at this point, the corruption of her husband hasn't been revealed publicly, which we now know that those plans for Tom to stay in that house will change, because obviously they need to get rid of assets to pay for things, which we'll get more into in the coming weeks. But it also confirms that maybe Erika didn't understand the severity of what was going on, or she was just so in denial about what was about to come out and how it was going to impact her that she felt comfortable saying that. So we continue this scene. We're almost done with this scene or this block, and I'll get to your chats in a few seconds. Dorit and Kyle are now talking in the other room about their situation, kind of squashing their beef. And oops, sorry. So this was them. Let's see. That was Kyle. I forgot to change the the picture. Okay. So Dorit and Kyle are still talking in the other room about Sutton and Crystal, which confirms what I said in recent weeks about the game of telephone, making the problems between Crystal and Sutton worse. And mostly by Dorit from what we've seen, because it appears that Dorit and her husband, PK, their recounts of events don't really align with what we've seen as viewers. And you can share your disagreement or agreement with me on that in the comment section. But I think Crystal, from the flashbacks in this scene, showing her telling different people different versions of what happened in Lake Tahoe when Sutton went into the room to kind of give Crystal her coat back, where Crystal happened to be nude in her room. I, unfortunately, for Crystal, think that because things are on film, it's going to be hard for Crystal to justify her reaction and kind of portrayal or retelling of events. And I think Sutton is going to win this one. Excuse me. So that was the end of the second block. And let me pause for a second and take a quick sip, and then I will get to your live chats in a quick second. So let me just pause really quick. All right, let's see who is here. All right, Nastia is here. Thank you so much for being here live. I'm glad you are back. Let's see. Nastia says, let me bring it up on screen actually. It's jarring to hear Erika talk about how horrible her marriage to Tom was all of a sudden when it's been 5 years of glowing praise. It sounds like her marriage had this dynamic the entire time. Nastia continues to say, so why now? It's just so convenient for me. It feels like she's covering her ass, and what makes it worse is Lisa Rinna desperately trying to cover for Erika. So I completely agree. And it could be either the whole time they've been having these problems, and obviously they put on a front in front of everyone, but I will, in the next block, I will kind of share what happened with some things that came out that they flash back to, that we kind of look back and see, oh, maybe there was more trouble than we thought. So yeah, I don't know. It is interesting that she is, the timing of everything, meaning Erika filing for divorce, and then what shortly was revealed after that regarding her now ex-husband, it does make you question if she got out because she knew something was about to happen, whether she was in denial about that or knew about it that far in advance, or she just found out all these things had happened and she didn't know prior and she got out while she could. I don't know. And I will say, yeah, I agree. It does make it worse, kind of knowing that Lisa Rinna is trying to cover for Erika, or maybe Lisa Rinna doesn't know. But what you will find is, I actually saw some people commenting, I forget where, I think it was on the Bravo YouTube channel, or I honestly don't remember where I saw this, but people were saying how maybe the other girls are being supportive of Erika because maybe they know deep down that they have some shady ties too, and they think, okay, well, if Erika is getting caught up in this and getting caught basically doing shady things, or is going to be in trouble for it, that we need to protect her and hopefully she doesn't get in trouble, because if she goes down, then maybe we're all going down, or she might tell it on us or tell our secrets or whatnot. So it is very interesting. I don't think this is even close to the end of this whole saga. So now let's get into the third out of 6 blocks. Let me make sure I have the correct thing. All right. So, I guess I skipped all these pictures. Sorry. I was so involved. I was so entranced with this. All right. So we start this block with Garcelle meeting with a dating coach. And we learn that quote unquote Chocolate Michael from last season didn't work out with her. And so we learn Garcelle is taking the opportunities, or we also learn that Garcelle is taking opportunities as far as her career goes now because she feels that it is a privilege. It is her privilege as an American after her mother brought her here to provide for herself and to not take it for granted. And so in her confessional, she also shares that as far as her love life goes, that letting someone completely have her back is her feeling like she is relinquishing her power that she has worked so hard to have as a self sustaining, self sufficient, self providing woman. And so she also says she doesn't trust someone will truly have her back unless she provides for herself and kind of is her own safety net, if you will. This to me explained a lot about who Garcelle is, even though I disagree with her approach many times. This helped add more context for me as to why she is the way she is, but also, on the other hand, confuses me a little bit because so far she's been saying things in regards to her and Kyle regarding her being a black woman in Hollywood and kind of the struggles and some of the difficulties of that. But then she also is admitting that she has a level of privilege as an American immigrant. So I'm wondering how these all are going to be compatible when it comes to Garcelle. So we'll see. And we also saw last episode, she was sharing about the different cars she's had as she's had more and more success here in her career in America. And so, of course, I don't think anyone should have to deal with discrimination or racially insensitive or racist things. But I do see a little bit of incompatibility with some of the things she says versus other things. But we'll leave it at that for now. So then we get Erika. We cut to Erika at her rental house. And her glam team is there to help her with decorating it. And we learn more about the divorce and what really happened leading up to the filing. And what we learned was that once Erika actually found a place to live on her own, she said that day she dropped off Tom at work at his law firm and went back home and packed up whatever she needed to and moved out. So then we get flashbacks to Erika and Tom in their home happy, but we also get a story from Erika about a time at a dinner with multiple men and Tom where she was late because of traffic. And one guy at the table said, well, if you were married to a better man, traffic wouldn't be a problem. To which Tom replied, saying to the guy, well, if you can afford her, you can have her. And from what Erika said, he said it without even thinking or hesitating. And so Erika ends this scene by saying basically, at what cost is it worth it, or what human cost is it worth it to have all these things, but have to sit there and shut up and take it to some extent because this person you're married to is basically providing for your entire lifestyle. And so I mean, I think that's a very honest take from her because she's very clearly revealing more things than we really knew from the show previously. And like Nastia previously said, it appears that they had trouble for a while. And like Erika said before, she was always kind of shut down by Tom because he didn't want to engage with kind of confronting their problems in their marriage. And so now we're kind of seeing this for what it is. And so I go back and forth on, like Nasi said before, it's like, okay, if you had all this trouble in your marriage, why now are you just getting divorced? And so maybe they were having a rocky marriage for a long time. And like Erika said, maybe she felt the need that she had to sit there and kind of take it because he was providing for her lifestyle. And maybe her getting word about all this stuff going on with him was the reason she needed to leave. But that could come back to bite her if there's some proof that she knew what was going on and didn't say anything or was complicit in any of this. So let me see if anyone has their live chat. All right, it looks like everyone's good for now. So we're getting into block number 4, and this is where we see Sutton at the doctor's office getting a mammogram. And we learn the reason she is there is because she told Kyle she had never had a mammogram 3 weeks prior to this. And so Kyle then dragged Sutton to get her first mammogram. And Sutton says that she regrets bringing this up to Kyle, but in the end, we learn that everything came back okay for Sutton. So then they're in the doctor's office on their own now. The doctor's left, and they start talking about the Crystal Sutton situation. And I agree with Sutton on this, that it appears to be being blown way out of proportion. And Sutton clearly, or from what I see and from what she says, had no ill intention when approaching Crystal as far as giving the coat back to her and didn't know she was naked in there or whatnot. Now, as far as Kyle dragging Sutton to get a mammogram, this is where I want to get your thoughts, because the question is, do you think Kyle is a good friend for basically forcing Sutton to go get a mammogram? Because I kind of go back and forth on this, because I think, yes, of course, Kyle is a good friend for looking out for her friend's health and wanting her to get checked. But then I think also maybe no, she might not be a good friend, because in my opinion, I don't like being coerced into doing anything, even if it's something that ends up being good for me. I just would rather kind of come to terms and do it on my own time. Obviously, sometimes it might be too late, or it could have been better if we did it earlier. But I want to know what you think as far as friendship and Kyle basically, quote unquote, dragging Sutton to the doctors to get her mammogram. Let me know what you think. So next we see Erika and Lisa having a drink at a hotel bar, and they order hot toddies, where Lisa then shares that Rinna Beauty is launching soon and she's feeling the pressure. Then Erika says she hasn't felt this vulnerable in a long time and felt that she was left no room but to leave, and then continues to open up more about what happened with the divorce, saying that, and says basically that's the best way she can put it for now, which shows that she's still very carefully choosing her words when talking about this situation. So then we get flashbacks of scenes from the show where it was clear that Tom was kind of the boss of the marriage, or in charge. And we see clips from seasons past, the few times we've seen him on the show. And so we learn Erika considered trial separation, but thought it wouldn't work because kind of the old-fashioned marriage that they had, and him, Tom, being kind of an old-fashioned relationship person. She said she did not leave a note, and we hear her share with Lisa about the day she dropped off Tom at work, where Erika said, "I love you," and Tom replied, "Thanks, hun." And so we also learn that Erika says they haven't talked since that last interaction. So the scene ends with Erika basically saying, quote, "and he has some real challenges ahead of him." So she's kind of I think she's alluding to the legal stuff that's going to come out about Tom. Obviously, we don't know for sure. Erika's talking in very vague generalizations, but I think she wants to say stuff, but she doesn't feel comfortable saying specifics. So I think this is the best we're going to get at this point. But I think we all know what she's alluding to. So then we get into block number 5, and this opens up with Crystal with her cousins prepping for the group to come over to learn how to make dumplings. And so we see that also they were all invited at Sutton's lunch. So that is where Crystal invited all of them. And we have a quick cut then to Kyle asking Sutton what she's wearing on the phone, and then we cut quickly back to Crystal's husband, Rob, coming in to save the day with a few ingredients that Crystal had forgotten that were essential to the dumpling making. And so everyone is now arriving and at Crystal's that night, and Garcelle is praising Erika's outfit after Erika is the last of the group to meet Crystal's husband, Rob. Erika then orders a hot toddy again, and we learn Erika put some stimulating oils she got from Kyle and Mauricio on her, I should say, sensitive pleasure areas down under, and said she is, quote, lit. So then Crystal goes on to actually follow Sutton inside to chat once again about what happened at Lake Tahoe. And Crystal shares that she wants to move on and never talk about it again because it is annoying, but because she says it's annoying to be brought up, and she kind of asks Sutton, well, isn't it annoying to you that we keep having this thing being brought up? But then she says that people keep asking her about it, so they both agree to squash it in front of the group. But as Crystal and Sutton are walking back to the group, Erika was adjusting her seating stance to avoid any flashing of parts down there, reminiscent of Pantygate from many, many years ago with Dorit and her husband PK, the first season that they were on the show. That became a huge thing with Lisa Vanderpump and whatnot, so she kind of tried to avoid that. And so then Sutton shares what happened in Tahoe with the girls, and they kind of talk about it in front of everyone. Crystal then says she is over it, and the scene ends with Sutton saying basically it is a little defamatory to say that she was violated by what she did, or Crystal was violated by what Sutton did by popping into her room to give her coat back when Crystal was in the nude. So that was the end of that block, and we're getting into the last scene, but let me see what everyone is saying. Nastia says, yes, I think Kyle was a good friend. At the end of the day, she pursued Sutton as aggressively as she wants, but she can't make Sutton do anything. That is a great point. I completely agree. And maybe Sutton is the type that if you have a good friend and they kind of are coercing you into doing something that they're saying is good for you, then she would do it, which of course I think obviously the context matters. And of course, Kyle was doing it with good intentions because she wanted Sutton to get her breasts checked. And so I think that is a great point, Nastia. So thank you so much for adding and joining that conversation. And if you're listening to the replay, feel free to join in as well in the chat. So if you're wondering if I'm touching my hair, I got a haircut finally. I got 2 inches taken off of my hair. And so I'm still trying to figure out how to work with it because it's been growing out for about 8 months. So it might not look too different, but it feels a lot different. Lots of weight taken off. Anyways, let's go into the last block, which was block 6. And this is where we see Crystal and Sutton. Crystal then says Sutton is the one bringing up the situation all the time. But I personally don't see it that way. It appears that either people are asking Crystal about the situation and she's entertaining them at this point. And I think a lot of others, and if Crystal really didn't want to talk about it, she would be shutting it down, which would align more with what she is telling Sutton she thinks of the situation, of wanting it to be over. And then Dorit kind of gets called out for being in the middle of this, to which Dorit kind of says she was only hearing Crystal's side, which in my opinion has been an inconsistent retelling from Dorit and her husband's side. So Dorit and the girls agree that Crystal and Sutton got off to a bad start and had a bad time together in Tahoe. However, Sutton then calls out Crystal about this narrative of the whole beginning of their friendship being bad, because Sutton says although she thinks they've had a rough start, they've also had great moments, which we have seen the last few weeks regarding them opening up about their fathers, meaning Sutton opening up about her father committing suicide, Crystal opening up about her father, her father. Was her father or mother? Well, one of their parents. And so Sutton is defending herself, saying she is not crazy. And she just had a bad few days, and those happened to be the first 2 days that her and Crystal really got to know each other. And so Garcelle, in her confessional, echoes this because Sutton is her friend, by saying that Sutton is harmless and she's just a little quirky, but the words Crystal was using to describe Sutton as manic and crazy are really strong words to be slinging at another woman. And in my opinion, I think those are strong words without any proof or background or whatnot to be slinging at anybody, regardless if they're a man or a woman. But I can see how on a cast with all women, doing that to each other can be a problem. And I think that supports the criticism a lot have of the Real Housewives in general, of not being the best portrayal of women on TV and the best thing to move women forward. But that can be a conversation tabled for another time. So then in the same scene, Crystal says, I'm going to believe you, in reference to Sutton saying what Crystal has seen isn't all that Sutton has to offer, and that Sutton says she's believing Crystal, saying that Crystal saying that she won't bring it up again. So then Sutton also says in her confessional that it came off a little bit mean and that Crystal is a mean girl. And to be honest, I'm starting to agree more and more at this point with Sutton regarding that, because it appears for now they squashed the beef, but in the last few episodes, if the last few episodes are any indication, and some of the season previews are as well, which we haven't seen those come up yet, this appears that it will come up again in some form in the near future. So the girls end the episode by making dumplings in Crystal's kitchen with her cousins, and everyone loves them. Kyle says that they look like Lisa Rinna's lips, and Garcelle and Kyle can't stop eating them. They all looked really delicious, by the way. We also get Garcelle saying to Erika that she wants to introduce Erika to her dating coach, which we saw earlier in the episode. And Erika says hesitantly, I don't know, but probably going to have lots of anonymous sex. So I guess she's not ready for a dating coach. And then as Garcelle is in the other room picking out desserts to go for her kids, the other girls are talking to Erika about feeling lighter after the divorce and kind of being on your own after marriage and trust issues, which they were kind of relating to Sutton, who has gone through a divorce recently as well. Erika ends with saying that she trusts this group of girls and would stand up for them anytime, but says also, quote, there is so much these women don't know. And that is where this episode ends. But there was a season preview, or an episode preview this time, unlike last episode, in which we see more, or we see someone showing up to surprise Kyle's daughter, Portia. I'm not sure what that's all about. I couldn't tell who it was. I'm guessing it was like a TikToker or someone, or a sibling, because they were wearing a mask outdoors, so I'm not sure. Or outside the glass window where they were eating dinner. Garcelle is also talking to her sons about her getting married again. Lisa Rinna is sharing about her daughter dating Scott Disick to Erika in a car ride to somewhere. And then we also see Sutton and Crystal getting into it again. So my previous comments like 2 seconds ago seem to be correct about them not ending or squashing what's going on here anytime soon. All right, let's see what everyone is saying. Nastia says, I would feel the same way as Sutton. If Crystal didn't want to talk about it, she would shut that line of questioning down as soon as someone brought it up. She seems too eagerly to discuss it every time. I completely agree, Nastia, and now that we see more context and have a little bit more to judge Crystal and Sutton on as far as their relationship, I do think at the beginning I can see how they were kind of misunderstanding each other because they were new friends. But now that they've gotten to know each other more and they've kind of talked things out and gotten to know each other a little better, I think at this point it does appear, or it's coming off at least, maybe Crystal isn't doing this consciously, that Crystal is looking for reasons to not like Sutton because of some indications early on. Maybe it is that phrase or the disagreement about the phrase "I don't see color," but in that case, when you look back, I think Crystal kind of baited Sutton into that, based on her preconceived notions of Sutton as a white Southern woman, and so I am on Team Sutton at this point, even though I understand where Crystal may be coming from. At this point, she is kind of harping on this and just needs to, I think, let it go like she says she wants to. So we'll see. But who knows too, as far as behind the scenes things go, maybe they are, from a producing standpoint or an editing standpoint, showing this more because maybe it is kind of filling the gaps and it is adding some drama as the Erika situation unfolds and as prior to the focus shifting it to Erika's storyline and keeping the other girls involved. But we will see. I predicted a few weeks ago that I think Erika's situation will bring the girls together and potentially mend some of the problems with the other girls quicker because the Erika situation is going to get so serious. So we'll see if that comes true. I know there was an episode that aired last week. I have not watched it yet. So this is me giving my live thoughts on episode 6 before even watching episode 7, which I plan on watching tonight, getting ready my thoughts, and then going live tomorrow, Tuesday, the 6th at this same time, so that we were caught up before Wednesday, and then we will do episode 8 on Thursday. So if anyone has any final thoughts, leave them in the chat. I will wait a few seconds. If not, once again, thank you so much for joining me live. I'm happy to be back and after a few weeks away from you all. And make sure to click around the channel if you're waiting for more, or if you want more content as you're waiting for new lives to come out. Join me tomorrow for episode 7 and Thursday for episode 8. Wednesday, there will be a live on a different subject not regarding Housewives, but my other main topics that I touch on. Let's see, Nastia has another thought here. She says Crystal is picking on Sutton because she can sense she's the weak link of the group. That is a great point too. I do think Sutton is clearly more sensitive than the other girls, and is still the new girl besides Crystal in the group. And so I do think she may be a little more easy to pick on or to get to, and that just supports the mean girl part of Crystal that Sutton was kind of accusing her. However, I think Crystal is late to the game as far as picking on Sutton, because it appears Sutton is kind of owning her independence and gaining her confidence because she's pushing back and she's speaking her mind, and it looks like we're going to see that next episode as well. And so I think that's why I like Sutton on the shows, because we see her, or we saw her last season coming out of her divorce, and clearly she was in a divorce not like Erika's, but similar in a way that she was married to someone very prominent and wealthy, and now she's finding more independence with that wealth. And so I think she is coming into her own, and I think part of those growing pains are her conflict with Crystal. Hopefully they can get over it, get through it, and kind of work it out, because I do think it does seem like they have some things that they could bond over. So anyways, if you don't have any more thoughts, I'm going to end this for now. Thanks again for joining, and I will talk to you tomorrow for episode 7 recap and react. Thank you so much for joining. Bye-bye.